Hello, guys. Welcome back to another Tuesday night chat with the Muskrat and Creole. Now, as you guys have noticed, things have kind of changed for planning tonight due to scheduling conflict. Terry Rogers isn't going to be able to make the show tonight. And talking to Creole, we decided it would be best for him to sit the night out as he tried to return back to work today after fighting COVID, and being outside in this weather doesn't do too good on your body when you're trying to fight the effects of COVID. So we're going to ask Jeremy to sit back and relax and get some rest. And I know he has to go to work tomorrow and do some things that he has no control over. He's got to be there. So we're going to let him just take care of himself tonight. So we're going to do this thing old school style, go solo. And we don't really have a topic per se, but we're gonna make things happen here. So first thing we'll do is jump in and say hello to everybody. And first off the rip is Pontoon Jody, one of our channel members. Catfish and Fever Outdoors, Jason Lamb's in the house, Skip Stewart over at Clearview Outdoors, along with Zach Murray, completing the trifecta River Warriors. Thank you guys for being here. Bobcat Outdoors reminding me that bobcats do eat muskrats. He dropped it on my page for me to remind me. So thanks, Bobcat. Chrissy Brown's in the house. Chrissy, thanks for stopping in. Abbott as well. Takedown Catfishing is in here, hanging out with us, and ready to get this thing kicked off, get the show started and on the road. We got John Packard Jr. We got Garv Morgan in the house. We got a lot of hellos going back and forth. I thought I seen Minnow Dunkers in earlier before I changed things around a little bit. I had to change things up, keep things up to beat with what was happening, what was going on. So we got Tom over at LG Bass, got a show scheduled tomorrow night with Fishing with Koss. So if you have not seen a version of Dock Tales, check it out. Tom and Jody do a great job over there. I was a guest a couple weeks ago, but the show's a little bit different pace than what you typically see through a lot of these shows. A lot more personal information. You get I really like the intimate touch. I'm not sure if that's the right verbiage for that, but we'll leave it at that. I like the feel. So keep up what you guys are doing. I enjoy it, and I hope other people do as well. So make sure you check out Tom over at LG Bass. Jason Lamb, if I didn't say it before, I'll say it again. We got Richard over at Fishing and Freedom. This is fun to say. What's up, buddy? Another channel member. Thank you so much for who is Zach? Ooh, I don't think you want to go there, Jody. He can whoop us all. Sandy's in the house. Hey, Sandy, hope you're feeling better. I know that you're fighting the virus as well. So my thoughts and prayers are with you, girl. Stay strong. Stay away from ban. Kevin Walters, what's going on? Tuning in from Facebook. Appreciate you stopping by. Still in you. Also here as well, David Smith, Whiskers and Dreams. Uncle Jeep is in the house. Jerry Parker, Nett Morgan. I got slowed down, and it's going to cost me, ain't it? Jello's in the house. Michelle over at It's All Mine. Let's see. Lance McCoo guy. Jerry Parker. I'll say it again if I said it already. Ian Titman's in the house, another native Ohioan. When are the River Warriors going to go ice catting? Ooh, I know half the River Warriors ain't down for that whatsoever. I don't think Zach wants anything to do with the ice. I promised myself I would. What's this? Look at my fancy emoji. I can't even see it on here. I got to go back and look up here. Let's see. All right. Anyway, I'll get back in action here. I'm getting too far behind. We got Denise Morgan in the house as well. Timolina's in the house. Holy moly, we're getting busy now. Let's see. David Smith, CVA. CVA was up on panel for a little bit there with Kelly Bullock's show. We got Fishing with the Squirrel. We got Sogo's in the house. What's going on? Holy cow. trying to get down there. Catching up. We got Becca Mudtramp here as well. Becca, thanks for stopping in. Appreciate you. Let's see. Fishes with the Squirrel, Kristen Brown, man. All the hellos back and forth. Whisker Dreams. I think I said it before. We got Chad. He's peeking in on us. You know he's gonna. You know he can't sit there and be quiet though. It just wouldn't. It's not Chad. I wouldn't want him to be that way. Let's see. Get on down through here real quick. Got Amy Evans hanging out as well. I still got an annoying cough myself from the COVID. Just a tickle and I don't know. Dale Hayslip is in the house. What's going on, buddy? Thanks for stopping in. Quiet man Curtis. And if Curtis is here, Fat Boy Eric ain't going to be far behind, so I'll be watching for him. We got Catfish Code in the house. What's going on, buddy? Thanks for stopping in. Hope everybody's doing well. I know you guys have been struggling out your way, so thoughts and prayers to you. Thoughts and prayers to you guys. Uncle Jeep saying hello. I might get to the bottom here. We got another Facebook user out there saying hello to Muskrat Adventures. Thanks for stopping in. Whoever you is. Oh, damn. We got a $5 super chat. We ain't even started talking yet. Thanks to Pontoon Jody is Roger's #1 fan. I don't think too many people are going to fight you for it, so that might stick. That might stick. We got Philip Williams in the house as well. Holy moly. Jason Lamb. Roger, you know us all Southern boys, our cousins in one way or another. I thought that didn't happen until we got over the river. I didn't know about all that. Chrissy says, don't bet on it. Well, I appreciate that. Just got home for the day. I will kind of be quiet. I'm exhausted. I'll take your word for it. Some of us, not some of us, like me included, some of you guys got to work for a living. I gotta scrounge. Kevin Palmetto Cats is hanging out with us. Thanks, Kevin, for stopping in. James Fox, what's going on, buddy? Hope you guys will be able to get out on the water soon, get some fishing in. Let's see. Mark over at Catfish and Crappie. Kevin Baker. I think I'm caught up. I think I might have caught up. Setting hooks and crossing eyes. If I missed you, it wasn't intentional. I promise. Trying to go through all these is a little more difficult than it looks. I want to do the alphabetical thing eventually, but so many people are coming in. I think I would end up doing it like 3 times before I got everybody. So I'm better off just trying to read through there and get through it the best I can. Let's see here. Big Dan said, Roger said, Big Dan is on the ice yesterday. If it held him, it'll hold you. I'm not worried about the ice holding me. I don't know how much fun it's going to be. Catfish Code on TikTok. Uh-oh. A lot of people switching over and doing the TikTok thing. I've got 2 videos over there. Hey, I threw the #2 up and Stan showed up. Did you see that? Did you see that? I threw the #2 up and there's Stan. What's going on, brother? Thanks for stopping in. And, a lot of people jumping over doing the TikTok thing, with the crowd that's over there. And I've got 2 videos over there. They're doing okay. But I'm having a lot of fun watching. I know not Creole, Kevin over at Palmetto Cats. He's been dropping a lot of stuff. And then, of course, Epic has some, man, it doesn't matter if it's a short, if it's a production video or a TikTok, they're all super duper. His video quality, and well, you just put big fish in it and it automatically gets cool right off the rip. So let's see. I thought I saw who else? Oh, Real Gals Fish. Thanks for stopping in. So we're going to get things going here in just a little bit. So I've got some questions this week. A lot of you guys saw that we've been catching some fish. We haven't been killing the fish down here on the Ohio by any means, but we've consistently been able to go out and find some fish and put some fish in the boat. And Mark Weiss fish with you. I doubt it, buddy. I'm going to go. I told myself I would. I got to at least try it. I figure out if I turn off comments, so I decided to go for it. I figured out I could turn off comments. Oh, okay, on TikTok. Yes, some of the crowd can be pretty harsh. I don't know. I haven't decided if I want to turn the comments off or on. I know me, I'm probably just going to leave them on because that's just how I am. And if they get out of hand, I'll just shut it down or just ignore it. Sometimes you got to take the high road. If you get caught up in all the drama and stuff going on out there, you wouldn't get anything else done. So better off just to do your thing and put one foot in front of the other. Oh, speaking of Tim Scott, he just showed up. Epic's in the house. What's going on, buddy? There he is. We were just talking about TikTok and some of the other platforms everyone's using now to get some traction, get some headway. But cold water tactics, I seen Zach mention it up there, and that's two things I'm going to tell you. One, make sure you take plenty of salt and a shovel with you. And we found out this weekend, it actually doesn't hurt to have a sledgehammer, or this was probably a small 3-pound hammer. But the ice was pretty thick on the ramp, just from where the water had come up. And then the water went down. It left there's Mike Greenwell, also on the TikTok wagon, where the water had gone down. It left a pretty thick layer of ice. And so we got down to the ramp the other day, and there were a couple duck hunters in their John boat just dying to get out. And when they seen me and Zach show up in the Sea Arc, they thought, oh, yeah, they're going to plow us a way out of here. We can go. And, turns out the ice was just so thick. We thought once we got out a little ways farther that the ice would be thinner. These guys were in waders, duck hunters, and they were able to get out there pretty far. They waded out to their chest and broke the ice up. So when we put the boat in, it wouldn't damage our transducer or bust trailer lights out. Propane torch works great on the ramp. Yep, you got one of those big ones. You got one of the big flamethrowers. That'd be fun just to do it. Tiger's in the house. What's going on? Thanks for stopping in as well. I thought I saw Stonefly 71 here as well. But these guys didn't have much salt. And once we started pouring the salt to it, things started really loosening up. But come to find out, the ice was just too thick. Even if we got the boat in, it's pretty hard on the boat, especially the back of your engine, your lower unit and the cowling around the back of the engine is all plastic. And it was that cold. It's cold and plastic. You're going to break it. You're going to bust it all up. I think, not to throw Chad under the bus, but he experienced this very thing, I believe, last year, where he busted the plastic and stuff on the back of his motor. Would it have damaged the metal and stuff on the boat? Probably not. But the big chunks of ice banging down into your transducer could throw things off. It just ain't worth it. We had another ramp that was, it was a little dry, but we had another ramp available that was clear. And so we hightailed it down there and got in the water. This time of year, we're looking for bait, and bait was plenty. Just about every creek mouth we checked was completely full of bait. However, the fish just weren't around. They weren't around. Now, we marked some bait and stuff in deep water, and the fish were around. They were hard to spot and they were hard to find, but they selling flamethrowers at Farm King for $6.99. I'm going to stick to salt and shovel. But the fish we were marking anywhere or getting hooked up on were in deep water. And they were in fast water. We were fishing off a current seam and a channel ledge. So we had a ledge and a current seam. We had slow water. Actually, we had reverse current up against the bank. And there was nothing happening over there in the slower current. We picked up some smaller fish on that inside towards the current, or towards the slack current. But when we got out into the main current and the channel ledge, that's where all of our better fish came from. So on Sunday, we ended up with 13 fish, and I think we had a 31, a 17, two 15s, a 13, and some other smaller fish, which for us is a great day on the Ohio this time of year, especially. Being able to go and check and look for all those different things, not exactly. I get Tim excited. Not exactly what we thought we'd see. The river was going down. which is going to pull bait out of the creeks and things that have been loaded up in there. And there was bait stacked. I mean, ridiculous amounts of bait stacked. And the fish really weren't there on them. We went to some shallow flats, and we picked up, I think, one blue and a couple channel cats on the shallows. The fish were marked scattered. We've actually marked some decent fish out there, but the bite has been very, very finicky, to say the least. They're just barely tapping the rod. I think we got one good takedown the entire day the other day. I seen that Daryl's in here from Trophy Seekers. Now, they had been out all day today, and last I saw they had 3 fish. One flathead, which you catch a flathead, in January, especially the end of January, anywhere in the country, it's a treat. Flathead's a treat anywhere, any time of the year. But in January, that's a treat. But I could tell they were struggling as well with the bite. They weren't getting good takedowns. They weren't, they were getting bit and finicky bites for them as well. Let's see. I thought I saw a couple more people come in. Let's see. We had Alvin Lewis is in as well. Buck Williams. And let's see. Check out Kevin Walters, owner of Monster Cat Fishing Tackle. Great guy. Awesome. Yeah. Anytime we can, find somebody in the community that supports the community and, just has good customer service. Those are the guys that I like to spend my money with. I don't want to make every show like about Uncle Lou, but, as an example, a guy that cares about the community, invests his time and efforts into the community. Those are the kind of guys I want to back and support. So there he is. So he must be relatively close if him and Bill, that's William Matthew for the rest of you. For these guys to be chatting back and forth, he's got to be relatively close to us here in Ohio. So Scott Swift says he's here as well. And Epic is still giving thumbs up. So I'm not sure if Epic has a different mindset on the cold water tactics. Now, I fished with Catfish Code last year, January, and we were still dragging baits. And I don't know if he ever stops dragging baits. I was skeptical, to be completely honest, about dragging baits in January, but we caught fish, and we actually caught some decent fish. So I won't say that it's not something I would be willing to try, given the right circumstances, but it was definitely a sight to see. So we got Bill Hopper here, War Pigs, also hanging out with us. So let's see, Tim Donna in there as well. I think that was me, Becca. So although Creole was not able to, where'd he go? Not able to join the show, which he could have joined the show. We asked that he just kind of. Well, I don't know what's going on here. I was trying to share my screen and share a video with you guys, but instead of sharing the screen, it's wanting to pull it up on my main screen. So let me see what happens when I do this. That doesn't work because then I'm not looking at the camera. Let's get this back over here and get things right. Hey, right there's Real Beasts, Pat. Yep, we was on a live yesterday, and Pat's got a new series going on Monday nights now before Catfish Weekly at 7:00 Eastern Standard Time called Monster Mondays. And last week he had Joe from Chat Cats on there talking about his monster fish. And I was honored to have been invited last night to be on the show and talk about my 78-pounder named Tank. So we got to hang out there for an hour. Man, it went fast. So be sure to check that out if you get an opportunity to. Let me see if I can get this video to come up here because like I said, Creole sent in the tip of the week. Let me see.
All right, guys, this week's tip, a quick DIY net holder for your boat.
Well,
what I got right here is some 1.5 inch Schedule 40 PVC. I just cut it to the length.
You can hear him, but I don't know where it went.
Use 2 metal straps that you'd use to attach this conduit to a pole, building, something like that.
Did you see what I did? So I was trying to find the video. So we could hear him, but we couldn't see him. And instead, I kicked myself out. You think by now I would have this stuff figured out. The fancier I try to get, the worse it looks. We'll go on anyway. Let's see here. So a couple other things I wanted to talk to you about was when it comes to the cold weather stuff is hopefully I'm back. I still see he's gone. So maybe I'm back. Maybe I'm not. I could be talking to myself, which has happened on more than one occasion. So I'll maybe wait a second to see if I get a thumbs up before I carry on. Let's see here. Get this kicked over here. We're good. Okay. All right. I apologize. I was going to share a link out here. That way, if anybody else wants to come on and talk, we could do some wintertime talking. Or we could just keep on keeping on, because there's a lot of stuff, we do differently when it comes to tactics out on the water that I think are relative to why we're able to find fish and get on the fish. And, most of it is due to the fact that the electronics that we have are able to tell us not so much what's going on, where the fish are exactly, but they're able to, give us the structure, give us the contours going on the bottom that give us what we want to target. We got a taker. What's up, buddy?
Trying to get it all figured out. What's going on, Roger?
Hey, what's going on, buddy? Hey,
I'm just enjoying everybody's enthusiasm about catfishing. I love it. I couldn't hardly say hi, get back to anybody. Everybody was hi. There's so many people. It was rolling like a chat on MSN or something.
Yeah. Well, talk about enthusiasm. If you guys have not checked out Epic's last video with this flathead in it, I don't know what else you're waiting on, because I watched that video and I'm like, come on, spring. I've got to get it on some. Every year I tell myself I'm going to target flatheads more, and I end up, chasing blue cats most of the time. And I guess this year is the year that I'm going to make good on my word and get out there and get after the flatheads, because I got a PB to beat. My blue is going to be hard to beat for a while, so I'm going to go after my flathead PB, which is 55 pounds. So we're going to go see if I can't beat it.
Roger, that spot was so intense because it's a small spot. It's got so many sunken trees in it and there's enough high wood in it that I really had to put like heavy pressure on it. And I'll tell you what, that fish, that was that rod was a Rippin' Lips heavy,
Yep.
with power line on it, and yeah, that was quite the battle.
Well, that kind of goes back to, we all have our personal preference of rods and reels and line and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, you got to know how to handle. Know how to handle that fish. Having gear that's capable of handling it is part of it, but it doesn't have to be top of the line. It doesn't have to be the biggest name brand stuff out there. At the end of the day, the only thing the fish really care about is your bait. And you guys got that cooler full of perky live bait down there, and to me that's key.
And one of the other things about that is, when you're in those small areas that are choked with wood, you about can't let them rip drag at all. So yeah. I mean, you saw me move forward towards the back and then back up. I mean, that's because I couldn't let that fish do any drag, and he about got me off kilter.
Yeah. It looked pretty chaotic there at the back of the boat. That's when it's the best. When you're having to flip rods over and under, and he's on this side of the boat, then he's on this side of the boat, and that's
we live for the chaos. We always say that, just the pure intensity, the adrenaline. I mean, it lasted for another hour. The bite in other places was okay. But that one fish in there, that's all that was there. Now, when we roll into a spot like that and we catch smaller ones, 5, 10, 15 pounders, usually that's what's there, and you may catch multiple fish. But a lot of times you go into a small area like that and you catch one monster fish, and that fish has been protecting it for a while, and there's really not much right in that spot. Now, that spot also has perimeter spots, which we didn't even fish because we had other spots we wanted to go to, sunken barge, wing dikes, stuff like that. But had we had more time, we could probably have picked off perimeter fish that want to be in that spot. They wanted to be in the core of that hole, but they just couldn't do it. So they're up on that 4 or 5 foot, and we would have had to, relocate anchor and, throw out and do all that other stuff. But yeah. And as you guys notice too, I don't always use donkey baits, because when I'm in that situation, I don't want bait fish bigger than my hand. Because they're going to do all kinds of this and just get me wrapped up. So I'm going to use 4 or 5 inch fish instead of 10, 12 inch bait.
Yeah. And I know you went over this I think last week in one of the lives, but James is asking if you feel like you catch many on cut bait, the flatheads.
Yeah, we do. We catch quite a few on cut bait, but that really hasn't presented itself very well this last season. We had lots of cut bait out, and we caught a lot of fish, small fish, but under 15, under 20 pounds. But the big fish all came on live bait, and I would even spend time in the predictable core where I think that big fish is going to be, and throw cut bait into it, and throw cut bait. Sometimes we threw all cut bait, because if you throw into an area with all cut bait and you get bites or not, or if you throw all live bait and get bites or not, there's no way to notice a preference.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
I have been on spots just like that. Throw live bait, and say, you know what, these fish got to be here. Give me some of that moon eye, throw in, and bang, there's a 50 pounder. There's a 60 pounder. I mean, I matter of fact, I don't know if that's on video or not. I think it may be the old, the old home camera that sat on your shoulder, the great big old dinosaur thing.
Big old thing. Yeah. Hey, me and Zach was talking the other day, and this is kind of what we do. We're in the boat for 10 hours, and people ask, what do you guys talk about? Especially my ex, she was, what do you guys talk about for 10 hours? We talk about fishing.
Yeah.
While we're fishing.
Sure.
But we was discussing the migration of blue cats up and down the river chains, and their effectiveness to get through locks and dams and things like that. And I guess a lot of people are under the assumption that the spring and summer, they're going to run up as far as they can, and they're going to be hanging out pretty close to the dams. And then the winter, they're going to try to go down. And so they're going to be in these deep holes, the closest to the dam.
So sometimes they are.
Right.
It just kind of depends on how things have been going. You know, how the river has been acting, what the temperature is, you know, how long it's been, you know, like stable normal or stable low.
Yeah.
And it seems if you get, at least in my area, you know, and we have a succession of dams. I think there's like 8 or 9 in the Blue Cat habitable zone,
Right.
you know, from Keokuk down to St. Louis. So it's pretty simple to tell if you fish the highest point a couple times, you're just not contacting or marking big fish. It's pretty easy that in the last 30 years, I kind of know what it takes. Sometimes I ignore it and try, you know, go anyway to Keokuk. But every time I do, and I have a suspicion that there's not a lot of big fish up there, I get proven right on that because it's pretty much like clockwork. But if we can get stable, normal water, they'll move up. And it really does take them about 2 months to go that 110 miles, even though they can, if they want to, especially in a free flowing river like the Missouri, shoot, they'll travel 60 miles a day, 80 miles a day. But when those dams, for some reason, sort of holds them up. And that's one of the reasons why people catch fish below dams. Because, you know, if they're on their, you know, if they're moseying upstream, they're kind of hang around for a while. If they're doing this, the opposite downstream, they'll kind of hang around for a while. Remember that time I told you to just go to any dam near you on the Mississippi and fish up above them, and I forgot that there wasn't any dams down there?
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that.
How did I forget something like that? I'm really getting old.
So this time of year, is it less likely then for big fish to be hanging out at the dams? Are they more likely down in the deeper, calmer water or closer on the upside of the dam?
Once fish get acclimated to the winter period, you'll still have periods of movement, and unless it's really cold. When it's really cold, they seem to stay put for a long period of time, and they don't mosey up and they don't mosey down. So way up here, it's pretty darn cold. I mean, the Mississippi River even freezes shut up here. So down where you're at, I would tend to think, and I'm no expert on this because I haven't fished down there in the winter. I'm extrapolating, you know, what I'm thinking about as far as they've moved down, because when that water goes from decent, you know, 70s all the way down to 50s, they have the proclivity to move down, and not all at once, but that's usually their movement. Instead of upstream, it's downstream. So, but once they get there, if they find, you know, pretty good habitat, pretty good food source, I think they tend to stay put more in the winter than they do the summer. So I have tried to fish below dams up here when it wasn't frozen in the winter, and I don't really come in contact. I mean, yeah, 20s and 30s, teens, fivers, you know, all that stuff, but I don't really seem to contact really huge fish in that faster water below dams. Not that they don't visit, but remember one thing: in the winter, you got that for most of the time, probably 5 out of probably 7 days a month, you know, 5 out of every 7, you've got a short bite window where they don't have to feed that much. So, you know, when you're doing the right thing, it's hard to prove if you're doing the right thing because you might not be there at the right time because, you know, so a lot of times in the winter, a lot of people choose to do what you were talking about. They choose to drag, they choose to drift, or they choose to just put time in on one spot. And none of that's wrong, because really, if let's just say I moved into an area that's got 2 80s and a 70, do I have a whole lot of confidence that I'm going to be able to throw baits in there and they're going to bite it in the first 20 minutes? I don't, because I've done it too many times where you had to wait as much as 4 or 5 hours. Now if you fished yesterday and the trend was 3 to 5 in the afternoon that they were biting, well, you better be on big fish come 3 to 5. If they bite early in the morning, you better be on your big fish then, because you may only have a flurry of an hour of activity.
Yeah, here lately it seems to be fish activity all the way up to about noon, and it seems like after 12 o'clock things kind of die off for us. Even right now, we picked up a few more fish later in the day, the other day, but most of the fish were all caught before 12 o'clock. And
now that'll tell you that the night bite is terrible. When you don't have hardly any activity in the cold water period, except for from sun up till noon, you got 3.5, 4 hours in most parts of the country for that. So in the wintertime, since they're very slow digestive, their digestive system is really slow.
right.
So if that's your bite consistently, you can pretty much guess that the night bite is at a minimum. There's always going to be fish biting at some point, but if your high activity period is in the morning, usually it takes that full circle of that 8-9 hours to get them biting again.
Yeah, it's kind of the trend we've been following here for quite a while, honestly. At least we've been fishing pretty much the same pool for quite a while now. On the Ohio River, every pool is a different river. We've got another pool that has been consistent. War Pig down there, those guys, William Matthew, where those guys fish down there, the river has been pretty much consistent this whole time, where our pool has been yo-yoing just up and down, looks like a heartbeat. It's ridiculous. Our water's really erratic and it just all depends on the different pools, all the industry or housing or development that's on the river compared to the next pool, which pools can handle tons of water and which ones can't. So they really kind of hammer our pool because it can handle it, whereas the other pools, they like to keep them pretty. There's a lot of the cities right on the water or houses are right on the water, and they don't let it get out of control. It's
Gotcha.
So that's why we have so many differences on the high. You can go from one pool to the next, and it's completely opposite. It's which is a good thing.
The Mississippi is a lot like that too, and a lot of rivers are that have big cities on them. I mean, the municipal areas, they got to be and even some of them are placated by the pleasure boaters, believe it or not, because the pleasure boaters start just complaining when they don't have enough water or there's too much water. So there are pools that get managed differently.
Yep. Yeah, the pool above where we fish, I believe, if I'm right, they maintain a 12.5 foot level, and they don't change much.
How's the blue cat population up there?
In my opinion, low.
Yeah.
In my opinion, low. We actually don't do much up above that pool we're fishing.
Okay, so what about the pool below you? Is that a stable pool?
The pool below that pool is also pretty wild,
Okay.
but it's got better population of fish. The pool below me is where J-Dog fishes, and so they've got some better fish down through there. It's hard to really say what the potential is because commercial fishermen are tearing everything up. So
Are they?
So it's hard to really tell what the potential is down through there. But when it comes to activity levels, the pool that, like I said, maintains a 12.5 pretty much consistently. The fishing up there sucks.
Okay.
Yeah, Zach says the same thing.
Okay, so let me pick your brain a little bit.
Okay.
The last pool that empties into the Mississippi, what is that one called?
I'm not 100% sure.
Okay.
I've never been down that far.
I forget.
We got Chris Souders in the house. Chris might be able to tell us what the last pool is before it dumps into the Mississippi.
Now, see, to me, Roger, that would be, without knowing, that is where I would guess that I wanted to go on the Ohio anywhere to catch a true monster, because you've got fish off the Mississippi that will travel into that Ohio and back. And especially the Ohio's got gentler current than the Mississippi. So there's going to be a population of them that moves into winter. And
All right, so
I would suspect that there'd be some monsters in that pool.
So this looks like the name of the last pool before it dumps into the Mississippi. And I would expect the exact same thing. I would expect, at times big fish coming in out of the Mississippi, coming up into those waters.
Yep.
And each pool, heading north from there, becoming less and less likely to hold giant fish all the way up until you get clear up to, there's a certain point on the Ohio where you just don't have any more blue cats.
Yeah.
But to Chris's point earlier, talking about West Virginia, West Virginia has done an awesome job. I don't know how many times I have launched on West Virginia water and seen wildlife officers out there conducting studies. I've seen them set traps and lines and things like that to conduct studies, and I've caught tagged fish from West Virginia waters. But I'll be honest with you, almost all the fish you see us catching here lately is Kentucky bordering water. And I don't know. I think once I seen an officer out there on a holiday weekend. I think me and Zach ran into a boat, but I couldn't remember for sure if it was Ohio wildlife officers or Kentucky.
Okay.
But yeah, the pools down through there are definitely going to be a lot better. Mike Greenwell fishes down through there as well. Those guys boated a 92-pound blue cat there last year at the end of the year before.
There you go. And any of those pools can hold 100-pound fish, but it's more likely to have several 100-pound fish the closer to the main Mississippi River you get. And they just don't. It seems that the big fish don't seem to make it through those dams very easily.
So this is just, and it may sound crazy. So fish making it through the dams, are they coming through the gates of the dams, or are they coming through the locks?
Almost never the locks. And how we know this is Keokuk doesn't have any fishable blue cat population above it. And they could freely go through the lock, but they can't get over that. You saw it, Roger, how it just falls from 40, 50 feet.
Yeah.
They can't get through there, and they can't get through the power plant, through the turbines.
Right.
They could lock through if they wanted to, but I've talked to DNR guys that have netted fishermen that fished it. No real population of blues, one or two. That's about it. Huh. So we know that they're going through what a lot of people call the clams, because right. you got them going from the top and you got them coming from the bottom. So when they open, they're basically going straight through that hard flow.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's just something I had never really knew, and I'm going to ask. Warpig says that broken tails. He thinks that they're getting. I don't know what the broken tail. I don't know if he thinks they're getting caught in the locked doors, or I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure that I've seen those locked doors. They ain't fast enough to catch a blue cat.
No. Broken tails. Now is that there is a genetic inherited disease that causes a tail to go over and then kind of crook down, and they're kind of stumpy.
Yeah,
I've seen it many times. I mean, it's rare. It's probably 1% to 2% of the population has those weird tails, and we actually caught one. And we only fished 2 days down on the Tennessee, and we caught one last winter.
No kidding. Now we've all caught one too. We never really knew or understood what happened to it. We thought, tail got broken at some point. Maybe it got attacked by another fish, when it was smaller. something like that. But no.
I used to be really interested in all that kind of stuff. I've asked and talked and researched, like the what everybody calls a piebald catfish. It's not a special catfish. It just has a genetic skin disease.
Pigmentation, yeah.
Albinos, I've caught probably, I don't know, 6 or 8 albino blue cats in my life. I've never caught an albino flathead, even though they supposedly exist. I've caught a couple of albino channel cats. So you got albinism in its different forms, and then you have the basically the ones with the like super deep black spots.
Yeah.
And there's 2 things that cause that. One is a genetic disease, and the other one is actually a skin cancer, not caused by sun. It's just a skin cancer, especially the ones that look like tar. Have you ever seen those where it's on their barbels and everything, and it's all tarred up? That's actually a cancer.
I got you. SF Outdoors just popped in and said, just watched your video epic. That was awesome.
Awesome.
Good to hear some positive feedback from the video. I don't think you get any negative feedback, honestly, but
on TikTok once in a while.
TikTok is vicious.
Oh, I put where the rod got ripped off my boat, and I had 90 comments that guy doesn't know how to fish. He didn't set his drag. Blah blah blah.
Yeah. Everyone's a pro, huh?
Oh my gosh! I've run into more experts than I could shake a stick at. So I had to put up my epic super monster after that, because I really didn't put up any big fish before it. I was just doing little things here and there, and then I got all that flack, and I said, well, I'll just have to make a TikTok version, and that changed the whole story. Then people figured out I actually did know what I was doing, and then they were a little nicer after that.
Hey, Jimmy. Well, first of all, thanks for your support, and hopefully some of those videos on Hoover help you out a little bit. And if you ever have any questions, feel free to hit me up. Maybe come this spring if you're up for it. Put you in the boat with me, and we'll go do some dragging up there and see if we can't beat that PB of yours. But in the meantime, if you got any questions, I can try to help you out the best I can. I'm not the best on Hoover. I'm learning it more over the last 2 years. But I'm really having a ball up there.
Jimmy, he's pretty good on Hoover. I've watched his lives. He knows what he's doing. Don't let him fool you.
We do okay. Real B says he has more subs on TikTok than YouTube. I don't think I don't have 1,000 on TikTok yet, so where I could go live. So now that we got the boat back in action, I've just got to get the mechanic to adjust the timer base, but it's ready to go. I can fire it up right now and go fishing anywhere I want. So I was hoping things would just thaw out a little bit. So actually, we got a trip planned. Brad Cottle and Jason. Yeah, him and Jason been wanting to come down for a while, so we might be getting together this week sometime and putting some time in on the water. We'll see how that goes. Catfish Code says Hoover's a blast. So yeah, I really enjoy it up there. I believe it's froze right now. I really wanted to try to get up there and get another day of dragging in before it froze over, but I'm going to on a limb and say it's frozen now. What's the biggest blue cat we've caught at Hoover? I think it was 42 pounds. It might be 41 pounds because the biggest flathead I caught up here was 42. I think it was a 41 blue and a 42 flat. It was the 2 biggest fish I've caught up there.
It's pretty good for a small state lake, Roger.
Man, that place is incredible.
Yeah.
They've been doing studies on it now. They started stocking that lake in 2011, and the average growth rate of the fish up there, they say, are averaging between 4 and 4.5 pounds a year.
Well, did they tell you about the broodstock they put in it straight from the Mississippi?
that might make a difference.
They didn't tell you about that. They never do.
Yeah.
All these lakes, and that's why they do it, because they love to talk about the heavy growth rates. Every single lake that has blue cats in it, of course they stocked yearlings, but they also stock fish that are 20 years old. I mean, 30s, 40s, and 50s. they get them out of commercial nets. They pay the commercial guys. They put them in their salt bath, get them all up in shape, and dump them right in.
Danny Stone's saying, I tell everybody not to listen to Epic. I got enough people that can outfish me without him training them.
It's all right, Danny. Not everybody listens to me anyway.
Yeah, PB is 8.5. Like I say, there's just nowhere around Grove City. Hang in there, Jimmy. We'll get you squared away. I'm not familiar with Grove City so much. I'm not sure how far Hoover is from you. Grove City can't be too far. It's about an hour and 15 minutes from me here in Frankfurt. If either of you keep fishing logs, how heavily can you rely on them from year to year, repeatedly in finding fish? If the dates, temps line up, would the fish be there again next year? That's a good question. I have my version.
Go first, Roger.
We really don't keep a log per se of dates and times and temps. We have paid attention to some of our big fish. We've gone as far as taking screenshots of the weather app that would tell us the temperature, wind direction, barometer, and all that stuff, and then we penciled in the rest of our information. But really, our logs kind of are our pictures. It shows up on your memories. You scroll back through. Amazon Photos or Google Photos, it'll show you this time with how many years back you want to go. And I can kind of go back and look and see, well, hey man, we was really tearing them up, this time of year at this pool or doing this or doing that. And, going back year after year and repeating it's very hard to repeat the exact same scenario, especially on the higher river. In my opinion, we still go back and try it, but for me, it hasn't been repeatable and not enough repetition to say it's effective. That's me.
All right. So I'm going to age myself here. Roger's talking about
give me just a second.
Memories on your phone and all that stuff. Mine was 35 millimeter film. So, back in the day, when I was first learning, that's when the log books were really important to me, and I think I even mentioned this on a live. I used to just jot down, hard data. I used to say, okay, yeah, this is what it was, this is what the temperature was, this is what the water temperature was, all that stuff. And one of my English teachers in college wanted me to write a daily or weekly diary of some sort about my life. And I really didn't want to write about that. I mean, jeepers, who wants to write about work and, maybe chopping some firewood? I wanted to write about fishing. That's what I wanted to write about. So I was able to convince her that, I could do my diary, which I called it Captain's Log. So I would start out and I would have to beautifully write about my adventures on the river, and whether I was just fishing, in my backyard, or I was going to the Mississippi, or I was going to the Illinois, or I was going to the Green or the Rock or the Wapsie or the Skunk, or any of that stuff, and it really was a blessing, because I suppose it made me appreciate things more, because I had to do it for an entire class, for an entire semester. So it was really kind of heartening, I suppose. Now, I can't read anybody's chat. Roger's gone, so I'll just keep talking. So as far as the logbook goes, writing it for as long as I did, and I kind of kept up with a logbook for, I don't know, maybe 8 years, and not necessarily as a beautiful piece of writing, in an English literature class, but there was a lot of things that I would note about how the current was, and how the wind was, and how it switched, and what I felt like the humidity was, and whether there was a storm coming, or or just how what the attitude of the fish was, whether it was Katie bar the door, or whether it was tough, or whether it was whatever. So I kind of carried that on with my ProCats thing that I did. because we had a message board, and I used to put up reports of the guide trip of the day. And, I used to start it out with certain things and things I would notice about my clients or notice about the river. Or, I mean, even if there was a turkey that flew in front of us, I didn't get too superfluous on it, but it was one of those things that helped me be able to go to the river and say, you know what, it's not right. Water's not right. Humidity's not right. Or the humidity's right. I walk out on my, my front porch there on my deck and go, oh my gosh, I should be fishing right now. I should have donkey baits on monster fish right now because they're going. And, I can feel it in my bones. I just gave myself goosebumps because I know when it happens. I know what the weather feels like. I know when something's coming in, and I just know that if I was on the water in the right spot. Now I could be on the water in the wrong spot and catch nothing. But if I was on fish in my general spots with the good bait, it's pretty likely that it's crushing fish on. And I'll call Sean once in a while. I'll be like, dude, it's 3:00 in the afternoon. And we're both stuck at work, and the monsters are biting right now. And so, yeah, he's like, oh, I know. He's like, I know.
That was going to be my question. So what happens when you walk outside every day and you think, man, there's a big one out there waiting on me?
I don't every day, but about 1 or 2 days or 1 or 2 hours a week when I do, I know it. And it hurts me right in the heart. I'm telling you, it's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I need to be on the river right now. But, it could have been terrible conditions 3 hours ago. And it just gets to that culmination of just that right heavy air, that humidity, all that's going. It's great. And that captain's log thing helped me figure that out. Because, when I was learning, I was just like everybody else. I'm like, it's time to go fishing. Or it's not time to go fishing, and you just go hunt. But once you start noticing those little things, and once you start looking at the river, and the bug hatch is just right, and the wind's out of the west, not the east, it's not coming up river, slowing everything. Maybe there's a little bit of a rise, and it's never like a hot dry air. When I get that, it's usually a warm, moist, heavy pressure situation. It's stagnant. Just the air is heavy, and you can feel that there's going to be a change of some sort or a storm come in. You just know it.
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. There's the same been for me for deer hunting. I deer hunted a lot of a lot more than I've catfished so far. And you get those days where this is when they're moving.
Everybody in chat probably knows it too, Roger. I mean, just remember one thing: don't
we're animals.
A lot of things. It's follow your gut. If your gut's telling you that, man, this is it seems like a good bite. Now you'll form that after you've been on enough big fish and good bites and all that stuff, and that is one thing that our minds do. Is we put patterns together because it's advantageous for us to put patterns together.
Right there. That's a good one right there. Can you read that? I can read it out loud if you want.
Yeah.
Go ahead and read it out loud. Stan says that right there.
I can actually see it today. Stan says, this right here is the biggest thing I've learned from Epic. You can eliminate a lot of unproductive water and unproductive times just by paying attention to all the details while you're outdoors. That's absolutely right, Stan. And it's going to take people a while if they're new at it, but just pay attention, try to remember what happened, and try to reproduce it. And just like Roger said earlier, you almost never reproduce any. This is fish we're talking about.
Yeah.
You almost never reproduce anything exactly, but you can be in the ballpark. You can be right. Now, as many years of experience as I have, it wasn't this last season, but the season before, I really choked. I hadn't flathead fished in quite a while, and we had high water early, and I wasn't on the water early from May, like late April, May. I didn't realize it had been high so long, so I was still trying to stay too close to the main river. I didn't realize that they got up out of the main river because the high water, it was just crazy. And they went off into the, into the primary, but also the secondary channels. So I almost never fished the secondary channels, and I should have, because we struggled with trying to catch really big fish. We caught lots of, smaller fish on the primary channels, the one just removed.
Right.
But there's a lot of big fish in the ones, off the main channel a lot farther than normal. I mean, it had been probably, 10 years since we'd had water that high that early.
Yeah, the ability to old school, I guess, read the river and pay attention to what's going on around you, whether that's the birds, whether that's a current scene that doesn't make sense, like why is that there? I don't, things like that, to go investigate, and just paying attention to your surroundings. We try to keep our head on a swivel. We're pretty simple when we fish. We see eagles and we get a kick out of it, no matter, even though every time we see it. We try to take everything in and make the experience. Actually, real quick, this last trip out, Zach and I were set up. We heard a commotion on the bank and turned around and looked, and 2 coyotes had chased a small deer off the bank. It jumped in the river, and the coyote jumped in the river after it and tried to chase it down in the river. And eventually, the coyotes gave up and swam back to shore, and that deer had to swim all the way across the Ohio River, and there's 35 degrees out.
Wow.
When they got back on the bank, they jumped a red fox, and a red fox ran all the way down the bank. We're like, what is going on?
My goodness, Roger. I have hundreds of thousands of hours in a boat, and I've never seen anything close to that. That's awesome.
We see a lot of stuff. For us, it's part of the experience. Catching the fish is awesome. Being out there is awesome. And for us, the harder it is to fish, the worse the conditions, whether it's ice, snow, sleet, rain, hail, whatever it is, the worse the conditions are, the bigger the reward is when we catch the fish.
Yes.
The other day out, we caught 13 fish, and we caught a 31, which is good for our pools.
Yeah.
And but because it was crazy hard to get in, we had to, fight our way through one ramp and go to another ramp, and it was sleeting and snowing on us. Then the wind came up and just rocked the river. I mean, right now, it was ridiculous. But
it's all worth it when you take all of that right on the chin and you win at the end of the day.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
When you get up to the truck and you're like, you feel like a man, because it's just, just aren't a lot of people that are, willing to do that or care to do that. And that's completely fine. But for us, it's just the harder the challenge, the bigger the reward. And
yes, it is. And that's probably why Sean and I get so excited about fish all the time, because it's where we choose to go and where we choose to fish and how we choose to fish ends up, when we catch one, it's I wouldn't say it's like winning the Super Bowl, but it is a giant victory, every time. And we celebrate it as such. And many times been 3 days, and 2 days are absolutely terrible. We can't buy a bite. And finally, the third day on the last anchor, we catch 3 or 4, 40s or 50s, and it makes it all worth it.
Yeah.
I mean, holy moly. And we say it on the videos. We don't just go, well, here's the 3 fish. We went to the river and we caught it. Usually, if we go to the river, we spend little time and have success, you get that feeling. With that last one, we looked at quite a bit of water, but it was basically our first. We did an exploratory anchor just to figure out where I want. It was closer to the main channel. I wanted to see if they were going to be reactionary there, or I was going to have to get up into the primary channels, and that was a decided on thing. And so I said, okay, I know exactly where we're going to go, because they're not doing it here and they're not doing it there. So that's why I said it's our basic first real anchor there, and where we're going to spend some time. And when it pays off, that's what all that, we were so excited, and the fish hit hard and all that stuff. It was great. So, and I'm sure a lot of people have those same experiences, and I'm glad they do.
So how much time do you spend looking at your electronics before you decide you're going to set up on a spot? Because I know you're pretty precise at how you like to be set up on something.
If it's flatheads, it depends on the spot, because a lot of times a classic flathead spot really only has one real anchor on it. But a spot like I just showed in the video has like
Right.
5. But I knew that the water was dropping. So I knew better than to go up shallow and fish the leading edge up in 4 or 5 feet when there's 10 foot, 12 foot available. I basically just set out to do the deepest spot, and it's not that big. I mean, shoot, it's barely bigger than a person's living room. So the rod that I actually caught the fish on, and I left that in the video on purpose, because I left that whole zone open because I wanted to throw up shallow. And you could see that first one was kind of at the back corner. And then the other one was in front of the root ball tree that was 90 degrees to the river. But what you didn't know is that thing is just stuck between the bank and another tree that's underneath the water. So that was right there. So I cast right in front of it. But then the core of the hole, I put, of course, my heaviest rod with the, no stretch line.
Yeah.
And really, that's all we put out, because, if it was going to happen, it was going to happen in 20 minutes. And it did. It happened in about 15 minutes. And it happened on the exact rod I expected. So to answer his question about log books, it's happened that way so many times. That's why I talk about it in that video, saying it's predictable flathead location. Not only where he was at, as far as in that sort of thing, it became predictable because it patterns itself. Not that particular spot, but a lot of spots just like it. You can pretty much, after a while, pick out where he's going to lay within sometimes a 10-foot area.
Yeah, that's valuable information. And like I said, time and time on the water is going to, put those experiences, and most importantly, put that confidence there that you need to have to go toss some baits in those holes and in those locations.
Yeah, and I'm going to answer your question a little bit more specifically now. So let's just revisit that same spot. Before I anchored up, that we had seen it last year, that spot. I've only fished it 3 times. I fished it once in a live. I fished it that time with the video, and we fished it the time before when the water was really high. And I liked the spot when it was really high, but that's when they were not closer to the main river. Current was still too fast. They were up even farther away from the main channel. So I had told Sean, and that's why he said we've been dreaming about this spot all winter, because we talked about it a couple times. So I can't wait to go back to that spot, because when the time's right, when that water's just right, when it hasn't been too high, it's just at a stable, and maybe if it drops a little bit, they'll filter off of that what would be 7, 8, 9, 10 feet of water down into. Then when the water comes down, it's 4 or 5 foot, and it's going to force a lot of flatheads into this spot, because there's a vast amount of area, but only one spot. So it's going to separate the little fish from the big fish till finally you got one big fish sitting in there. Now that one big fish I was hoping was a 70. It wasn't. It was a mid 40s, maybe high 40s. But I'm not going to sneeze at that.
No, that's good.
Now maybe next year there'll be an 80 sitting in there. And that's what I'm really hoping for, but I will look at an area like that very carefully and very closely. And one of the blessings of me buying a jet motor for running shallow water, I don't worry about when I'll like crunch over sticks and trees and bump into logs and stuff. So that whole area you looked at, I've put a fish finder. Not last year, but the year before, and I remember what it looks like. I've put a fish finder in all those locations to find out where the core is, even though I kind of know. But once in a while, there'll be things that surprise you. So if you look upstream where it's 4 or 5, sometimes it's got a shelf, and then it comes down, and then it goes over, and it goes down like that. But this one didn't have that. It just kind of went in, kind of like that. It was just sort of a whatever, and it was choked with logs, and since I had anchored a couple other times and figured out that kind of stuff was holding smaller fish, That's where I was able to just go for the gusto because, I mean, shoot, we didn't even get on the water till about a couple hours before that, and it was almost dark. And flatheads are notorious in my neighborhood in the pre-spawn in June for having a terrible night bite. You know, maybe an hour after dark, but, you know, as far as, you know, setting up like you do in August and fishing, you know, till 3 o'clock in the morning,
So one of the studies I had read, I think it was something by Ted Ellenbecker, talked about a study that
old mullet with the trucker hat. I remember
Yeah.
Ted.
Yeah, oh yeah. But they did some tracking on some flatheads, and the study showed that at night they would feed less than 9 feet. You know, I mean, and they're an ambush predator, but they showed that the majority of the fish stayed in 9 foot or less of water during the feeding times. And but the question I have is, of that amount of time, does it determine the size of the fish, how long that feeding window is, or is it more based on the time of year?
I think that's a really intelligent question, because little fish seem to have to feed a lot more. Big fish seem to feed a short amount of time and consume quite a bit and then sit there most of the time. One of the biologist friends of mine that actually did a study, he did one on the Flint River. He did, you know, and how long the contents of the stomach last, and they extrapolated a whole bunch of stuff. It's really complicated, but they radiotelemetry them, and they would move approximately 1 hour out of 24. Flatheads would. And it wasn't like they would go up and hunt, because, you know, the tracking data shows where they go and this and that and the other. They moved in. Now, this isn't small rivers. Small rivers, they seem to do that hunting thing where they get out of the deeper water and go up in the flats and roam around for a bunch of time and then come back. But on these bigger rivers, it seems that they sit in a spot and then they move and sit. So it's short bursts of moving is their ambushing. And you said it exactly right. They're ambush predators. So, you know, you'll have one sitting, and if there's no fish coming to him or getting in his range, you know, finally get up and move. Maybe he only moves 3 feet. Maybe he goes from the core of the hole to where the drop is and sets his chin on it. Because if this is the 5 foot of water and the current's coming this way, and he's sitting down here in 10, he may just go up there and sit his chin right there.
Grab them as they go by.
Yep. And as soon as they clip that, you know, where it's going, boom, there it is. And you know, Muddy River has seen where flatheads will suspend in trees, and they'll just rest on a branch, or, you know, they're kind of disguising themselves. It's they're like a deer hunter, like a human hunts deer.
Yeah, they
You
put themselves in a situation where they're going to intercept their prey.
Right. That's right. And if you don't see anything in one tree stand, what do? You get down, you move to another one, and you climb up it, and you wait. It's almost exactly like that. So when you're deer hunting, how much time do you spend moving? Almost none. You spend a lot of time focused, though.
Right. Yeah, that's funny. I actually read an article today about the flathead movement where they did studies, and they moved so little that at one point they thought they were dead. And it was like, what happened to the fish? And it was because they did
studies.
Yep, they did not move for 23 hours at a time. Then when they did move, it wasn't much. And they were like, they actually thought they lost the fish that they had chipped. And no, they hadn't moved. And they said they did that for periods of days, 2 to 3 days, and then all of a sudden they would be on the move.
Yes.
But it was still only I believe they said it was a period of like 3 to 6 hours that they were on the move, and then they were back to their hole, this exact same hole, same tree, for another 2 to 3 days.
And a lot of it in those hours, they're not physically moving a lot. They're just moving beeline fashion from point where they were to point A, staying put, and then moving to point B and staying put and ambushing, and then whatever, and then back to their home spot. Now, the one thing about radio telemetry, most of those have been done in the summertime. If they were to do them in pre-spawn, they would have a whole different story. And they don't do it during pre-spawn because most of the time the water's kind of high. These guys love to do, and I complain to my biologist friends. I'm like, dude, you just got to get out there and deal with it. I want studies done in the pre-spawn because you're going to see a whole different story. Because what happens is they sit there, they dominate an area until another one comes and roots them out. Okay. Mm-hmm. So if they feel real comfortable that they're going to attract a big, sexy looking female, they're going to want to hold that thing until another one that's either bigger or more of a badass than he is. Because some of them are actually better fighters than others. And they're not necessarily that big, but if they can hold the right house,
mm-hmm.
That's what impresses the females, because the females don't see them and say, hey, that's a big, they don't know how big they are. Or how big they're not. It's the real estate that they own. That's what the big females are going to be attracted to. She's like, wow, this place is great. It's got the right current. It's got cover. It's got all this. So that's the only way that without a thinking brain, that big genetics can meet up with big genetics.
Right.
Kind of a cool thing.
Yep. It's all about their pad. How good of a. Who has the best looking spot, and I'm going to spend the night here, or I'm going to hang out here with you, and then when I'm done, you can just stay here, and I'll go find somebody else.
Yes,
you just stay here and take care of the kids.
See, and male flatheads don't know when the females are going to show up. They have no idea, so they have to do that stuff for like a month.
Right.
I mean, they have to be on full on security detail for a month, and that means rooting out other flatheads. That's why by the time you get to almost spawn time, you start seeing those severe bite marks. Not just your little nips here and there, those severe ones where they've gripped onto them and they've shook and they drive them out, and their teeth actually are not that tough, but they have such suction, and they'll suck onto the side of a fish like that, or grab them by the pectoral fin, the pectoral spine. That's why a lot of times that thing will be raw and just and the big old males, that's what they have. Now the females also get bit, but they get bit in the tail area up underneath by the males. They also get bit on their pectoral spines. Something about the males trying to induce them into laying eggs. And it's a theory. I've never seen it with my own eyes, but I've seen a lot of big females that are very clean until right about when you know that spawn thing's happening, and they have bite marks like up underneath their whole tail section, sometimes on their tail and sometimes on their pectoral spines, where the males will have bites on their head and on their face and on their belly, especially on their sides, because they'll suck onto them and then they can control them, because it's the only way it's almost like putting a fish in a headlock.
So I'm sitting there thinking about that. And one of the things that come to mind is, I've seen a lot of channel cats just completely bloodied and tore up. And I'm wondering, are the channel cats as aggressive or as territorial as
they have the same strategy. They have the same exact strategy, except for they prefer shallower and faster water to do it. I mean, they'll spawn in slower water, but a lot of times if a channel cat has a choice, and remember the river I call the Scary River?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Okay, so that is a tributary off of the main Illinois River, and at some point during May, it's such a big procession of big fish that you don't catch anything less than 7 or 8 pounds. And the highest is going to be 15 or 16. And if the water has been high enough, early enough to attract them up there, you are going to say, there's an 8, there's a 10, there's a 12, based on location. How good does it look? How much current's moving through it? Is it a root ball that's got some hidey spots? Rocks. Stuff like that. I mean, there's entire days where we catch more than 50 fish in 7 or 8 miles, and we don't catch a single fish under 5 pounds. And so that's not true on the main river, but in the small river, there's only so much habitat. So that the big males are kicking out lesser males, because the higher up you go, the bigger they are, and the lower down you go, where the habitat's getting a little bit less compressed, that's where you get your smaller ones. And then once the spawn's over, they empty back into the main river. By June 1, the big males are done. They get back into the main river, and what you're left with is 4-pound females that are too late.
I got you. Lee Evans asked if a flathead, I think it was a typo, but he asked if they will destroy a blue's nest.
That I do not know. I have no.
They don't spawn at the same time, really.
I have no information on flatheads. And matter of fact, I don't think there exists a whole lot of information about blue cat nesting at all. Not that I've seen, and I haven't really pushed any information or tried to find any information about it, but I did for probably, I don't know, a good 10 years, 20 years ago or so. And there wasn't really anybody that could tell me with any sort of consistency exactly when the blue cats spawn or where they spawn. They had a little bit of anecdotal information. They got a little bit of this, got a little bit of whatever. What have you heard, Roger? I mean, I hear that the blue cats nest and the spawn is all over the map.
Yep, that's exactly how it is. That's the information I get here as well. Is I never really have a decisive, because we've always asked, do the blue cats spawn at the same time before or after the flatheads? Is there a certain? Wait a minute. Before I go on, Warpig asks if the males bite the females to try to make them lay their eggs.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, of course, we can't talk to them and ask them, but that is the general consensus among ichthyologists and biologists that actually, and there's so few of them that pay attention to flatheads, believe it or not. I mean, we got 100,000 scientists that love saltwater fish. We got, and then out of the 1,000 that's left, they're all chasing the money. So, I mean, you might be lucky to have 20 fisheries guys that actually paid attention to catfish for their own personal reasons. Now, they may, get an assignment or whatever, and they're just like, yeah. I mean, most of the DNR guys, I love them, but they're not passionate fishermen. They are scientists and they're mathematicians. They were great at school, but not so great with a rod and reel. Matter of fact, I don't know any of them that wouldn't admit to you right now, no, I'm not a fisherman, but they deal with fish all the time. But then again, I build furniture all day. I don't want to build furniture all night either. So
right, I understand that. Have
something to do with it.
Yep, that's and like I said, that's what we get around here. The blue cat spawn information is pretty all over the place. Nothing consistent anyway. Because if somebody asks me when the blue cats spawn, not 100% sure. I thought it was July around our area, this region.
I have one solid piece of information that I gathered while fishing, which lets me know when the spawn is around St. Louis.
Okay.
So I got to make sure I got my timing right. It was mid-September when I went out to a bridge abutment to throw for moon eye, and I caught a whole bunch of very small blue cats. They were only about maybe 1 3/4 inches long. They were all suspended behind in the boils of a large bridge abutment, and they were so new still you can almost see through them. So that tells me somewhere in that 3-week period before that is when they were laid. So they're pretty small when they're born, but they grow on plankton pretty darn fast. Now, if my timing is correct on that, and I don't know that it is because there's Asian carp now, it may take them twice that long to get that big. I don't know, but back before Asian carp, catfish fry that was 1.5 inches long and you could still see through them, basically, was approximately 3.5 weeks. Now, maybe they're 6 weeks old. So if you go mid-September and you go back a month or so, that'll tell you when they were laid. Now, that tells me sometime in early August,
Right.
which was surprising to me because I've
Right.
always heard that it's in June.
Yeah.
Now
Like I said,
we also know one thing, that flatheads do not spawn every year. They will have successful years where they spawn well, and then they'll have years where they don't hardly spawn at all. Depends on what the water is. I can't tell you how many times a DNR friend of mine has said, "Oh yeah, the flathead spawn is going to be terrible this year," and that's because there's super high water early, or the water just wasn't right, or it's too low and they're too close to the main channel. It's really weird, but I don't think there's any of those guys that can tell you, wow, the blue cat spawn is going to be great this year, except for blanket high water, where it's in the backwaters and all that stuff.
right.
I don't know that anybody's got that information yet.
Yeah, I know we definitely don't have it here. It's always it's always a guess, really. But even the flat, no matter what they do or when they're supposed to do it, they don't all do it at the same time.
True. Not
Things
like channel cats. Channel cats do a big push, and they seem to have a really strict window. Flatheads seem to have a pretty strict window, but blues seem to have this loosey-goosey spawn when you want. I don't know. And here's the other thing. I think blues spawn deeper than the other two. I know that flatheads will spawn as deep as 15 feet because I've actually caught flathead eggs on some branches before, right around July 4th, which surprised me. Matter of fact, I wasn't even sure what they were, so I put them in the bucket and brought it to my DNR friend, and he had to actually look at it in the microscope. So I was like, what exactly are these? Because I know how deep I caught them. And he's like, oh, yeah. He goes, not too many people know it, but, there's a lot of them that spawn deep. And in the very situation I was in, I was behind a small, what's a closing dike? It's like a wing dike, only goes all the way across a tributary river on the mouth. And so I was fishing right down into that and caught that stick. And there it was, a clump of flathead eggs. One of the coolest things ever. Matter of fact, he kept those eggs in his aquarium, and out of probably 400 eggs, there was about 5 of them that actually hatched.
No kidding.
Pretty cool.
That's I'd like to find the article I read where it breaks that down percentage wise. How many pounds or ounces of eggs make it to hatch, and of those that hatch, what the percentage is that make it to maturity. Because that information there is why we shouldn't be taking the big breeders out, because they lay more eggs, and which means more fish hatch, which means more likely more fish make it to adulthood, whereas opposed to the smaller fish lay a smaller amount of eggs. I've got that information somewhere, but I can't recall it quickly.
I have it
in your head.
Yeah, matter of fact, I have it in 3 different rivers in my head. It depends, and they did the study of an average of 5 years. So as a blanket answer, it is less than 1% that actually survive to adulthood, depending on whether there's commercial fishing or not. If it's not commercial fish, about 10% do. But the other is somewhere around 1%. As far as make it to actual big size adulthood. So it's really kind of infinitesimal, however you want to say it, that the odds are, and it does depend on where you're at and what the river is. So, they just kind of had to crunch those numbers, and that's above my pay grade to do that kind of statistics. Luckily, there's other people that do.
Can you read that question there from Mr. Gadget?
Yeah, I can. Will catfish carry eggs outside the spawn? In our area, everyone will say May and June, North Carolina. Yet I have kept small eaters in September. Yeah, matter of fact, they go through a faux spawn, especially fish that aren't mature enough to. They still grow eggs, and the eggs just never fully mature, and they absorb them back. I asked that question many times, many years ago. I'm like, how come am I catching, because I used to eat a lot of fish. How come am I catching fish with eggs in it, as late as October, November? They're like, no, that's the faux spawn, especially those smaller fish. They'll grow the eggs, but they just can't lay them.
Yep, I would. Yeah, I agree with that. I've caught fish, crappie or any other fish, way out of season, and they've got eggs in them.
Yep.
That would you call it veau
Faux.
spawn?
Yeah. They go through the motions, but they just can't do it.
That's what happens up here on Hoover Reservoir. So people will say, I've caught. What do you mean they're not breeding in here? Well, they're not breeding. They're going through the motions. Everything's going like it should happen, but the actual process is not happening.
Yeah.
That's why they continue to introduce new fray each year and continue to stock the lake. But yeah, that's the same thing. They're producing the eggs. They're going through all the motions. You can catch a fish and it could be full of eggs, but very few, if any, ever actually complete the process.
It takes current. It takes one of two things. It takes either current for blues. Channel cats will spawn in almost any situation. They prefer current. Flatheads can spawn in lakes. They just don't do very well. But for blues to spawn, it takes one of two things. It either takes a hormone shot in a laboratory or it takes current. And a decent amount of it, too. You can't just have a power plant lake that's got a tiny little, a little output, and have a successful spawn. So, yeah. I mean, if they really wanted to, you'd have to generate a whole bunch of current going down like the long side of the lake where it's deep and has big rocks. If that even exists on Hoover. I've never been on it. I don't think it does.
George, Sunfish Assassin says, in Georgia, the spawn as late as September, depending on weather conditions. And I think that has a lot to do with, like we talked before, the green growing days. I don't know what's going on with my electric. Did you pay the bill?
By the way, Roger, I like that the green growing days descriptive way of talking. I may plagiarize that a little bit. I'll say now. Roger Muskrat says it's a multitude of green growing days. Those heavy sunlight, heavy whatever. But I do enjoy the way you described that. What are you doing there, Roger?
I have no idea. The power's doing it all on its own. I haven't done a thing. I'm going to assume that maybe somebody's hit a power pole or something. Hey, we're back. I won't take credit. I mean, obviously, green growing days is not something. I became familiar with that through my buddy who's a beekeeper and kind of explained the process and how the green growing days, on this certain day, it's going to trigger this. And on this day, this is going to happen. And so being farther south, like Georgia's condition or situation there, he's got more green growing days. So as those days become shorter, it's going to happen shorter later in the year for him than it is for me up here in Ohio.
Our northern tier, and this has been hard to grasp for a long time. The lower United States with that, like you say, the more warm water, our fish go to things like right now because they can't afford to miss it. Like it doesn't matter what that water is generally as far as water temperature. Channel cats will still go up shallow in these rivers, and it can be actually colder in the tributary rivers than it is the mother river, and a lot of people don't get that, and so it's they take the daylight, the amount of daylight as a trigger because they can't afford to miss that.
Right. I think I paid the electric bill. I might be. Stan says that what he's read, so it says that blues typically take 5 to 8 years before they start efficiently breeding.
Probably so, but it wouldn't surprise me if there's numbers off the charts either way. Like some of them, if they're growing fast enough, reaching sexual maturity, at like 4 or 5 years old, you have to have a big fish population so that fish will actually stave off sexual maturity. So if they're actually bigger, they grow faster so they can compete. If you got a whole bunch of small fish, then that's how the stunting process works. You guys have heard of stunting, right? You kill all the big crappies in a lake, and all of a sudden now you got just 1 billion of this. I mean, it rings true for channel cats. It rings true for a lot of fish. So there's going to be information off the charts one way or the other, just like growth studies, just like everything else. The 90-pound blue that people claim got stocked like 8 years ago in a power plant lake, that's completely false. That does not happen. What does happen is, like I told you, they always put brood stock in, and there's that, one of those original stockers takes off. It was 49 pounds when they put it in 12 years ago, and then now all of a sudden, 12 years later, it's near 100 pounds because they just can't. Blues cannot grow fast enough until they reach the point at which they can eat large baits. They can't, and unless there's just so much food there, it's just ridiculous. It'd have to be ridiculous. You guys got me all excited to talking this fish nerd stuff.
Oh, I like it. I'll eat it up. Something you've mentioned before, and I kind of like your electric guy is a pay laker. The conspiracy is real. I hope not. I don't think I owe him money. Could be in trouble. No, something I would like a little more information or input on is about the digestive traits during the winter as opposed to the rest of the year. As far as, basically I'm trying to figure out just how often these fish are going to really need to eat. What the likelihood of is getting on, actively feeding fish, because we find fish, but we just can't get them to be actively feeding. And I start to wonder about that process. Start wondering about bait size selection and things like that when it comes to.
There's only one way to know, Roger. You got to be young and dumb like I was, and sit on him, and sit on him, and sit on him, and sit on him. Because I was all enthralled with that, because I knew that their metabolism was low, but I didn't have any idea it was that low.
Right.
We're talking. You could sit on a pile of fish that doesn't move. Just say they're behind a wing deck, they're full wintered. You might sit there for 8 hours, and you get 1 hour of activity, maybe an hour and a half, and then boom, you've boated 6 fish in that 1.5 hours. It's almost like they go nuts. The baits have been in their face the whole time. They just don't even care about it. Now, I'm not going to say that in the southern portion it's just that way, or maybe on the East Coast it's not that way, but in my little middle part of Illinois, Missouri, Iowa, Wisconsin, all that. Wow, it's quite the minimalistic amount of time that they can feed. And here's another thing that kind of proves it to you. I used to bring fish home to my 1,000-gallon tank, which I kept on a thermostat. I never let it get below about 37, 38 degrees, but you'd feed them, and flatheads don't feed at all, or didn't for me, in anything less than 39 degrees. None. Now, I was feeding them live baits, a finite amount of live baits, 20 bluegills. Got 3 flatheads. Check them every day. There's still 20 bluegills. Now, I didn't go and feed them cut bait, which I probably should have, but I did bring some blues home too, and they do eat more. Flatheads eat almost nothing. Channel cats eat in the wintertime and gain a substantial amount of weight, and blues eat more than channel cats do in the cold, but not by a lot, maybe 20%. And the other interesting thing is once they went through a regimen of eating an hour a day, blues will get really full, and then you can quit feeding them for a week, and they still appear pretty full. It's not that it goes down; it takes like 2 weeks. So and that only happens. That'll happen in a 3-4 day period or less in the warm water. But in the cold water, they'll still have food in them 3, 4, 5 days later. So it's a lot of people say they're really, really eating in the winter. Well, they're not. They're just not digesting very well.
Well, can you excuse yourself for a second and give me a flashlight?
I gotta step out here for a second and grab a flashlight. We in the dark over here. I don't know what happened. It's possible where we live at somebody's hit a pole or something. So give me just a second here. Anybody in chat that has anything for Tim there?
Well, get the oil lamps out, Roger. That's what
I've got oil lamps.
Yeah.
All right, give me just a second, guys.
I don't know. Maybe I can see chat. I think I can. All right, I can get to it, but I can't see anything else. David Smith, Avid, he's selling spaceships, and let's see. Oh, why one day they will bite skipjack and next day won't touch it, but will eat shad? Well, Lee Evans. Let me see if I can get back to the thing. All right, Lee. That I can't answer because my pool, and when I fish in the summertime, I can throw all the shad I want, and I really don't have much success with it. But I can go in the winter period or the cool water period and have pretty decent success with shad. And I mean, I can get giant shad in the Mississippi, but if I have a skipjack, it's 10 to 1. If I have a moon eye, it's 10 to 1. If I have a big sucker, it's 10 to 1. And I can't explain it because I've been to other waters where shad do just fine. For some reason, the shad seem to be a bait that big blues do not key on for me, because these shad do not hang out in the same zone. You know, they would have to go up in the shallows, and they just don't seem to do that like they do in like other people's lakes and reservoirs and, you know, other rivers that are slower. They seem to move up into shallower territory, even during the day. And that's what you're going to find in that shallower, slow water where the plankton builds up. You're going to find shad. So I can't really answer that question, but we know they do it. And we know it's irritating.
There's a good one from David Smith. Do you ever downsize your baits, or are you always throwing donkey baits?
No, I
know
downsize them in that video for flatheads. I wasn't throwing. I mean, we didn't even have anything bigger than about 4 or 5 inches.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course it is, Stan, because that's what you guys have in large amounts, and your shad will hang deeper because your water's slower. You know, back in the day when we were throwing nets, oftentimes we would find shad in 20 foot of water piled up on the bottom. You don't see that on the Mississippi unless you're in like the slow backwaters, and in that case, where I'm fishing, they just don't prefer to be there. Now, I'm no super expert on cold water fishing, because usually traditionally that's been my super busy time of year. I don't get to go much in the cold water, and you know what? I'm glad it worked out that way, because I'd rather fish warm water than cold water any day. So, I mean, but you know, as far as me being an expert on it, but I do have a lot of friends that, you know, we talk about it a lot, and there's a lot of guys that fish all year. I mean, even on the Ohio, you know, they're going to other places. So yeah, I mean, sometimes shad is going to be the bait of choice, and when you're on the James, throw the shad, throw the eel, you can throw the white perch.
Yeah.
You can throw almost anything, but man, when you got 14, 16-inch gizzard shad, holy moly, why not fish with them, especially if they'll bite it? Zach Murray, does the shad's diet have anything to do with when catfish prefer them? Well,
the reason he asked that question is because, like, when you cut into shad in the spring and summer, green stuff comes out. When you cut into a shad right now, it's all mud and brown, gooey looking stuff.
Let me tell you a story.
All right.
So 20 years ago, I started fishing with shad guts because a guy told me, you got to use them shad guts. You got to get them big shad. You got to, you know, and this was for channel cats.
Right.
And shad guts just really did well in the cold water period. And if the bite was terrible, I mean, you could go down to shad guts and, you know, it was pretty awesome. They're soft, you know, and I kind of theorized that, you know, yeah, it's nutritious. Well, it is. I mean, if you really think about it, all reptiles and all fish get most of their nutrients from the stomach contents. If anybody has ever kept fish in aquariums, or you've kept reptiles in aquariums, one of the main things you can't do is just feed them like straight up like chicken breast. I had a giant monitor lizard. I mean, the thing was like 4 foot long. It was a Nile monitor. I also had a Savannah monitor. So if you just feed them like certain parts of things, they just don't get the nutrients. All right.
Right.
So the vitamins aren't there, the nutrients aren't there. I mean, I could run down the list as long as you like. But I started thinking about that. I said, well, what is the deal when I'm using a shad? Say I cut the head off, cut the tail off, and they hit it. They pop the guts out, and it's gone, and they leave it. I couldn't get them to bite it again. You know, you throw it out again, they won't bite it. But if it's got the fresh head, and so here I start thinking, all right, it's got to be the blood, it's got to be the whatever, you know. And this is over a period of a few years. So I brought some. Well, there was other reasons for me. It was the initial part of my study on whether they could see color or not. So I had like 8 channel cats out in my big tank. Had the light set up, the red and the green. We won't go there, but I started throwing pieces of shad that was left over from my fishing trips. Well, I would throw entire whole shad like this into the current, and it would float down, and the catfish would pop it, spit. And I'm like, man, he didn't want that thing. And so I've got 8 catfish in there that are big. I mean, mouths on them like that. And they hit these little shad, boom, and then spit the rest. And I'm like, and one of the things you can't do in a tank situation, even if you have a biological filter, you can't just let a whole bunch of cut bait sit around. If they're not going to eat it, it'll foul the water. So here I got my pool net out, and I scooped it all up, and every one of them had a rip down the side. They had popped the shad guts out, ate the shad guts, and spit the rest. Why? I didn't even know that was a possibility. So I've never seen a flathead do it, and I've never seen a blue cat do it. But if channel cat do it, they wanted those nutrients somehow. So I'm going to compare it to deer hunting again. Why do deer go to salt and mineral licks? And they'll root through the ground in the dirt and eat the dirt just to get those minerals.
Right.
It's a possibility. It's a distinct possibility that shad are sought after when they need nutrients at certain parts of the year, Zach. That's the only thing I can tell you. I mean, it's distinctly possible that part of Mother Nature's whole mantra is that for some reason they get driven to shad, eat the guts, make sure to eat the guts depending on what they've got and whether they're feeding on zooplankton or whether they're feeding on algae. Now, the mud that you're seeing is not actually, well, some of it is actually mud, but they're actually pecking the simple algae that is growing in those shallows that appears every single day in that mud, and they're getting mud by attrition. They're not just eating mud. So you got algae on dam walls that they eat, and then basically plankton, zooplankton, phytoplankton.
That makes sense, especially this time of year when they're not trying to eat a whole lot. What they are trying to eat is going to be packed full of vitamins and nutrients that they need to sustain their bodies.
Yeah, and you know, anything's possible in fishing. We just got to be smart enough not to go down the wrong road and say, yep, that's it. Or, you know, yes, that's not it. You know, a guy's got to keep his mind open and say, okay, sometimes there is no way of knowing. So you got to smartly extrapolate a little piece of information there. But, you know, we just can't hinge on it unless we know for sure.
Brian's got a question here, and I know I'm not the guy to ask this question to. I'm not sure if you are either, but he's asking about what size gill net to use for bait.
Okay, I've never used a gill net for bait myself, but I've been in boats, especially DNR, when they're doing gill net collections. Now, depends. If you're after just big gizzard shad, I can tell you that the hole needs to be about 1.5 inches across. And it needs to be able to stretch to just get the gills. So Stans will tell you that thing needs to stretch to about 2.5 inches this way, so that when they try to go through it, their back doesn't fit and they back out and it basically catches them. So, I mean, that's if you're after like 13, 14, 15, 16 inch shad. Now, if you're after 7 or 8 inch shad, it needs to be about as long as from your knuckle to the end of your finger when you stretch that out. So that's going to be, you know, 2 inches max, 1.25 inches, something like that.
Yeah, I'd say that question is better for Stan and Dan, the Green Machine out there and all that. Here's a good question from Mr. Gadget. If you're fishing a lake for blues, and we get a lot of lake questions because we tend to stay on rivers, but what areas would you target first around the dam or headwater, the main channel, or the creeks of the
Yeah,
lake?
this is a good question because my strategy is not always a perfect strategy, but it is my strategy nonetheless. The first thing I'm going to do, if you bring me to a lake, or if I'm forced to fish a lake, I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to look at the situation. I'm going to say, okay, is there current present in the upper third? Because usually, a big lake is going to have at least some sort of water coming in. Okay. And you're going to have to answer to some of this, Zach, because you have experience on Hoover, and there is somewhat of a current situation in the upper end of that. And I've seen you contact fish in that situation. But anyways, I'm going to look for current first, like I do almost everywhere. Now, if there's a riverine situation where there's an impoundment, there's a dam, and then there's good water flow, if I can, I'm going to put a boat in or fish offshore below it before I deal with that mid. So I'm going to check the situation out, usually by going below the dam. If below the dam's no good, I'm going to jump up and I'm going to go to the upper third, unless it's a really long 100-mile lake or something goofy like that. If it only takes 25 minutes to get to it, I at least want to see it with my eyes. I'm going to go up to the boat ramp that I think is going to have current. I'm going to take a look at, see what the flow is. And especially if I have navionics, I'm going to look at the navionics and say, okay, it doesn't matter if it's flowing, if it's only 10-foot mud flats, and that's all I got. Because a lot of those lakes, that's what it is for miles. Shelbyville Lake, it doesn't have any blues in it, but, the Okaw and the Kaskaskia form, and it's just a muddy pit, until you get way down. The second thing I'm going to do is of course, I'm going to check for current up there. But then I'm going to move down the lake until I see an old river channel for blues, especially if I can see nice steep ledges. If I can see nice steep ledges and I can mark fish, I'm going to try it there. And then I'm going to try to, and I think I explained this in a live the other day too. I'm going to go off the ledge. I'm going to try to anchor. And on a lake, it's going to be mostly double anchoring. I'm going to anchor up a little bit shallow, and I'm going to cast off into the deep. And then I'm going to have to physically drag it back until it contacts where that ledge goes down and meets the bottom of the old river channel right here. And I may sprinkle some up here or there. I'm going to do a little bit of kayak catfish. I'm going to probably try to do some suspend drifting. I may drag. I may do a whole lot of things. But the one thing I'm going to look for is where deep water meets a good hard shelf. I'm going to look for the old river channel, whether it's up or whether it's down. I may even go and fish immediately above the dam in the deepest water available. It just depends. I'm going to look at it first, and I'm going to choose what I'm seeing on my graph if it's advantageous for me to fish. And I'll be honest with you, I'm going to have to, if I'm going to a new lake, I may get on fish right away, or it may take me 2 days to finally figure out a pattern. But usually once I'm on a pattern, I can do pretty well.
Yep, that's one of the things we like about the big lakes. Thinking about Wilson and Wilson's one of my favorite lakes in the country right now. So, but at times it's got decent flow, and at times it doesn't hardly have flow at all. Yeah, and it makes a huge difference how we're going to approach it. Let's see. Oh. Right there, bam. David Smith with a $10 super chat, trying to get the electric back on over here at the house. Thanks for sitting in the dark and still keeping on the show, Roger. Attaboy fun. Hey, thanks, David. I appreciate that. It looks, when I stepped out, I checked, and all the neighbors are out of electric. So it looks like somebody's hit a pole or something's going on down here that has made the power go out. So I'm on a AT&T Wi-Fi hotspot. We don't have internet available here. And the laptop is still holding pretty good. It's at 80%, but I don't know how long the little box will hold out. So if I just disappear, that's what happened.
Well, if you just disappear, I'll just keep talking, Roger.
Go right ahead. I can get on my phone. I'll log in, have a 6-hour live stream. I say, hell yeah.
Nice.
So yeah, Stan's helping Brian out there. Specific sizes allowed, minimums and maximums allowed on the Virginia.
So minimum was 2.5,
I believe it's a minimum
Yep,
of
2.5
one,
stretched.
minimum of
3.5
one,
or
2.5 inch stretch, and a maximum of 3.5. Okay,
And
that makes sense.
And you know why? They want you to be able to catch a specific size of fish that they've already figured out. The DNR has already said, okay, we got a massive amount of fish. They're, that are shad. They're going to get caught in this size gill net. So yeah, that's why the regulations are that way.
And Matthew's pretty much thinking the exact same thing I'm thinking of here when I'm thinking about Hoover. It's no secret to those of us that fish that lake. If you get a good rain and you head up to the very top end of that lake, there's some current there, and for as long as that, as long as, hey, Zach, good night, buddy. Thanks for hanging out with us. Appreciate you, brother. For those of us that fish that know that that's not a secret. You can get up there, and as long as it's got flow, you're going to catch some fish. But as soon as it backs off or starts dropping, it's pretty much the bite's over. That's the exact same thing we do. Now, what I haven't done a lot of is look at the outflow of that lake and determined whether I should be sitting right above the dam in that. Now that lake gets, I found some 70 foot of water in that lake above the dam. So
that would be what I would go to the 70 in two situations. I would go to that 70 in the hottest part of the year, except for it probably gets a thermocline. Does it get a thermocline on there?
Yes.
Oh, well, then I would go in the cooling trend at the late fall, because even though they're in a little dumb lake, well, I wouldn't say dumb. I just call it that compared to like, a 1,000-mile river.
Right. Oh yeah.
They're still gonna, if there is a downstream to them, and there should be some flow coming in and some flow going out. Their proclivity to go down is still there. It's a built-in inherited instinct. So, and they may not stay there long, but they also might pile up there for a while.
Yeah, absolutely. We checked that deep water out. Skip and I did this last season. We don't normally fish that end of the lake. We usually do so well in the upper third and in the middle section that we normally don't. There you go. Right in the that's something you don't see very often. Tim yawning.
Yeah. I didn't sleep very good last night. I actually stayed in the spare bedroom because, man, I was tossing and turning. I was up. I was snoring. I felt sorry for my wife, so I slept in the old crappy bed.
Looks like I might be sleeping. I might get the kerosene heater out and get some heat going on in here.
It's probably getting cold fast in there, isn't it?
Yeah, it ain't too bad. This house is actually does pretty good, honestly, for as big as it is.
That's good.
It's a big house.
Me too. I re-insulated my whole house, and we can literally keep this thing heated for a short amount of time with just the oil lamps. But I got probably 10 or 20 of them. You just light them all up, and it actually keeps it pretty decent.
Yeah,
we lose power a lot.
We normally don't, and we usually have a backup generator, but the generator's down right now, so we don't have the backup generator, which is bad because this is the time of the year we probably use it the most. This and thunderstorms.
We only use the generator when we have to. It's kind of nice because, after a while, we've got batteries and we can charge our phones and stuff. It's really kind of nice. We play cards and do, set the candle, all the oil lamps up, and the TV's off, and it's kind of like Little House on the Prairie again. There I go, dating myself again, aging myself. That show hasn't been on for.
We already got a tour of the house once. We know what's going on in there.
Yeah.
Stan said, "Send me a link. I'll keep this thing going."
That'll work. Matter of fact, why don't you send Stan a link, get him up here, because I've got some things I got to take care of. I'd love to keep talking, but I really do need to get on with some stuff I need to get done. Okay.
Well, that's no problem, man. I appreciate that. We it comes down to it. I need to hop off here. It's 10 o'clock, and I'm sitting in the dark out here. So
yeah, you better get after it.
Go find some lamps and get this thing kicked. Put some light on the subject.
Responsibility done.
Yeah, I guess. Tim, as always, it's a pleasure hanging out with you and talking fishing. Just
Been great, Roger.
So, hey, everybody else, thanks so much for hanging out with us tonight. We've still got 52 people in chat. If you haven't hit the thumbs up yet and you've enjoyed tonight's show, please consider hitting the thumbs up for me. And next week, we've got Adam Cook from the James River on the show. And I think we actually got Chris Souders 2 weeks after that. So
Roger, if I'm around and Adam Cook's on here, I'd like to ask him a bunch of questions.
you might have to get in line, but we'll work something out.
All right. Sounds good.
So, all right, guys. Hey, thanks everybody for hanging out. Hopefully you've enjoyed the show tonight, and we'll catch you guys here next Tuesday night, back to our regularly scheduled program with Creole. Those of you that weren't here in the beginning, he made it back to work today after fighting COVID, and the weather just kicked his butt. And I basically told him to take the night off. He needs to get some rest, and he's got to work tomorrow. So thanks, everybody, for hanging out with us, and we'll see you next week. Same cat time, same cat channel. See y'all.
Thanks for having me on, Roger.
No problem, brother. Thank you.
Yep. See ya.